Hi, I'm Shannon from houseimprovements.com. Today I want to show you how to build a laminate countertop. I've already gone ahead and pre-cut the base material, which in this case is basically a particle board material, and it's 11/16 thick. In my area it's sold as what they call industrial grade particle board. I don't really know what that means. They say it's possibly supposed to be a little more waterproof, but I'm not sure that that's so true. But anyways, that's what I use for my base material, and that's what you're going to see used by most companies that build laminate countertops. I have seen some people use actually MDF. I find MDF is actually worse for water contact, or worse when it contacts water than this is, so I go with this as well. Some people I've had request me to actually use plywood, which is perfectly fine, like a sanded grade plywood, 3/4 inch. The problem with that is it's a little costly, so most people don't want that option. But anyways, we're using this particle board for this demonstration that we're going to do. So what you need to do is determine the size of countertop you want. In this case, we've got just a straight run, pretty simple. Nothing too much to it. We're going to have 2 finished ends and 1 finished front edge. On this particular one, we're going to be using laminate bevel edge, which I will discuss and show you exactly what that is when we get to that stage. I will also do a quick demonstration when just using flat laminate with square corners on all the edges and surfaces, so we'll touch on that as well. So to start out with, like I said, I've got my pieces pre-cut. I've got my surface piece turned upside down right now. So what we're going to have is one solid piece for the very top, and then a framework underneath that makes the thickness, it makes it look thicker, and that's what we're going to do. So like I said, I've got it turned upside down. We're going to glue the framework around and nail it in around the perimeter, plus a couple of extra supports inside, and you'll see all that as I get going here. I don't know, it might be a little hard to differentiate between the pieces I've got laying here and the actual structure, but just make sure I got no dust there. I'm going to place some glue. So my edge pieces that I'm adding on here, they're all the same thickness as my top piece, which was 11/16, and I cut my pieces 3 inches wide. It usually works out quite well with standard overhangs and everything, so that you still have enough structure sitting on the cabinet to give you a nice stable countertop. So what I do is place that glue like you watched me do, and then about every 6 or 8 inches I'll place 2 brad nails. These are 18 gauge brad nails. I'm using 1 inch thick ones, so they're just protruding into that second layer just enough to hold the two together until the glue sets up. This glue I'm using sets up pretty quickly as well. So I'm putting it on there, I'm putting it flush. This will be the front edge, so I want it flush here and flush on the ends as well. We will touch it up with a sander if we need to, if it's not quite flush enough. So I'm going to nail it all on there. Make sure you're using your safety glasses. I'm also keeping my nails back about half an inch or so from the edges, and in from the corners a couple inches. The reason in this case for staying in from the corners is I'm going to actually cut the 2 front outside corners on a 45, so I don't want to be cutting through those nails when I do that. Okay, stay there. And slide that piece out of the way. I pre-marked on my parts where I wanted my interior supports. Basically, when you're planning that out, what you want is these supports here to be sitting over the actual gables of the cabinet. So, every spot that you have a cabinet, you're going to have one of these supporting the counter over top the gables, because that's the strongest part of the cabinet itself. So again, a little bit of glue on here. I'm just centering them where the gables will be. And And same thing on the ends. I used a little bit narrower pieces here in the middle just because that's what I had, and I kept the wider pieces for out here on the edges. Okay, so that's the main framework. Now I just want to go around and make sure, like I said, make sure the sides I want flush that are going to be finished with laminate. Just make sure that they are flush. So this is going to be the back edge that doesn't need to be perfect. These ones here, I just need to touch up a little bit. And I'm just going to use a belt sander for that. If you wanted, you could run it through the table saw and just kind of straighten everything out, but I find usually it's very minor little lips or whatever on there, like differences, so usually I can just belt sand it off. Thing to be careful of with the belt sander is that you're sanding it actually flush and square, and then that way you're not sanding the edge out of square. So I've got a little bit of an overhang here where this piece came by the end, and I'm just going to clamp this onto the bench so it doesn't shoot away when the sander, just because I kind of need both hands on the sander to get them square. So when I said square, what I meant is, and I'm over exaggerating, you don't want to be holding the sander, on an angle. You want to be flat right against that double layer. Okay, so that's a lot better. I think that was the only spot that was really going to be a bit of hassle. Okay, so I've got that. Now I'm going to flip this counter over the direction that it should be. So this is how it will sit on the island that I'm doing. And this back edge will be against a wall that's there. So these are the edges that I want to look nice. And like I said before, I want to just clip off these corners, just so it's not a square corner there that people can walk by and easily get caught on their clothes. So it's nice to do a nice 45. It looks good. Okay, so we want to use a tool to get our measurement back. I'm just going to measure both ways and join the mark. So if I measure equally, 1 inch, 1 inch, that is a 45-degree angle. And just put a line there so that we can cut that off. The same thing on this corner. Okay, just like that. Now, what I'm going to do is, you could just cut that with a skill saw or whatever you wanted, as long as you get a nice square cut. I'm going to reposition it over here at the actual chop saw and cut it there. So you don't really need that line there if you're going to use the chop saw, but I'm just trying to show you what you could do. Not everybody's going to be able to have the space to position this where they need it. So I'll just cut here and we'll get the countertop in position, then I'll show you. Okay, so I've cut the other corner already. I'm just going to cut this one. I got it all lined up. I'm holding the top up here as level and straight as I can. Okay, so I got those off. this back over here. There you can see that corner there, how it's cut, just to get that sharp corner off of it. Okay. So maybe just reversing a little bit here. You know, I told you we'd already pre-cut everything to the sizes we needed, but maybe a bit of background information on figuring out, you know, what you need for size. Generally speaking, on the front edge of the counters, and I'm not including the thickness of the doors or drawer fronts or anything like that, just the box of the cabinet. Usually your base cabinets usually will be 24 inches, the actual cabinet itself. And I usually make my countertops 25.5 inches, so about 1.5 inch overhang. That overhangs the drawers and door fronts, as well as usually most hardware, just so it's not sticking out in the way either. So 25.5 usually works quite nicely. Now, as far as on the end of a cabinet, it depends quite a bit on the situation. In this case, this is a like an island type cabinet out in the middle of the kitchen, with a wall and an eating bar on the back side. So what I'm going to have is 1 inch overhang on each end and 1.5 inch overhang on the front is what I'm using for this one. If you're going to be up against an appliance or something like that, you know, maybe this is a spot where the stove's going to slide in. For one thing, you won't want this 45 either. You just want to leave this square. But you need to be sure that you're going to have enough room for your stovetop to fit in there. So, you know, it might have to be flush to the cabinet or barely overhanging. It just depends on how the cabinets were installed and how much room was left. So pre-plan that all out. Cut your materials. Also, when you're pre-planning your sizes, remember, like in our case, we're using a bevel edge. I wish I had a little piece here just so I could kind of talk about it. This is laminate bevel edge. Now, this isn't the color we're using. This is just a scrap that I had. So it's a particle core center with laminate put on the 45 and down the front. And this is going to get applied right on the edges, the finished edges of the countertop once I've got the top done. So when you're determining the size of your countertop, if you're using this product, you need to also deduct from your finished size the thickness of your bevel edge. In this case, it's usually about 1/4 inch. So that's something else to consider. If you're just going to have a strip of laminate on there, depending on how exact you need to be, you know, if you got a tight fit, again, you might want to just deduct a 1/16 or so for each layer that's going to be on there. If you've got a layer on each end or whatever, you need 1/8. So just plan that all out before you get going. Okay, so we've got that cut. So this top here is ready for installing the laminate on the actual face of it, on the top of it. So when we're doing the bevel edge like this counter is, we want to do the laminate or the arborite, the plastic laminate, whatever you want to call it, on the top surface first. Then once it's all trimmed off and nice, then we add that bevel edge to the sides we need. If you're just doing a square laminate face, so that is laminate on the top and just laminate on the sides and basically a square corner, then it's best to do all your edges first with laminate and then your top, so that the top piece actually overhangs the top edges of the edge pieces, if that makes sense. Just keeps moisture from getting behind there and getting it caught when you're wiping the counter and that sort of thing. So you got to kind of know which style you're building before you start your actual glue up. We're going to be using a spray adhesive. I like this adhesive just because it is it sets up quickly, and it's, you know, it just cuts down your build time. It's a little more costly. It comes in these cans. The bigger shops will have this in a large, 20-pound cylinder with the hoses and a gun and everything. But for just doing a few countertops here and there, I find the cans very convenient. These particular ones are, I think they're close to $15 a can. For this countertop here, it's probably going to take me close to 3 cans to do it. You need to spray the wood surface as well as the underside of the laminate surface. So you're spraying both surfaces. So And you'll see me do that here in a few minutes. Now, other options are, there is water-based, this is a solvent base. There are water-based roll-on adhesives that you can use. Again, both surfaces need to be glued though. So with those, they simply usually come in some type of a little can. What I do is pour it into a small paint tray and use a roller and with a foam brush to apply it. You could brush it on, whatever you want to do, but and you coat the whole both surfaces completely. Sometimes on the wood, I will actually double coat it, and even with the spray, I'll usually double coat it because it just seems to soak in that little bit, and the extra coat really seems to help with the bonding. So we've got the spray solvent-based adhesives. We've got the roll-on or brush-on water base. There are roll-on and brush-on solvent bases as well. So just depending on how sensitive you are to smell and that sort of thing. And cost too. The roll-ons are generally a lot cheaper. This can tend to be a little more messy as well, so you need to make sure that you're properly covering the area around you, because you get a bit of overspray and it goes on the floor or on the table or whatever you're working on. So the roll-ons are usually a little less messy because you're applying it directly where you want it. So. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I think we'll just stop here for a minute. I'm going to put down some cardboard, like I said, just to protect this table I'm working on, and then we'll get ready to glue. Okay, so we've got our cardboard on top of the workbench, just to keep the overspray easy to clean up. And I'm just making sure that there's no dust or sawdust particles, wood chips, that sort of thing here on the surface. So just wipe that off quickly. Like that. I did the same thing. This is the plastic laminate we'll be using, turned upside down. I did the same thing there, just made sure it was free of dust. I've got one can here that's been partially used, so we'll start with it. So what you want to do, if I spray the spray on this way, this direction on the wood, I want to go the opposite direction on the other, so the spray patterns kind of crisscross. They recommend that. You get a better bond, or more surface contact bonding. I'm going to start down at this end and spray it here. Hopefully this isn't clogged up. Okay, so this stuff also, I can get it in clear or red. I have it in red just because it's a lot easier to see then. You can really see where you've gone. With these sprays, some decent ventilation is a good idea. Like I said, this one is a solvent base, so we have the doors open and a fan on, but you may want a respirator as well. So you can see how it kind of comes out sort of in webs. This has an adjustable can or adjustable spray pattern. It may not work now though because this can's a little older. Yeah, you can see there I made it a lot narrower. So you want to just get right out to the edges. Slightly overlap your last pass by, 20-30% or so. The important thing is getting good coverage. This can's starting to run out. And getting your edges really well. Because if it's going to lift anywhere, it's usually going to start on an edge. This brand, like I was saying, it sets up pretty quickly. You basically need the glue to dry to a point where it's just tacky, both surfaces. You don't want it slimy, like where it'll slime around when you touch it or whatever, and you don't want it to completely dry. So this stuff flashes off pretty quickly within a couple minutes, usually depending on your conditions. If you're using some of the roll-ons, you could be 20 minutes, half an hour or more. So this one costs more money to buy the actual product, but if you're in a time restraint, it can really speed up your build. Okay, so we went across that direction on that one. So like I said, on this one I want to go the lengthwise so that the spray pattern crisscrosses. So the laminate itself, I've cut bigger than the actual countertop. I can't remember what I did, but an inch or half an inch every direction is a good rule of thumb, so that you have a little bit of excess to give you a little bit of leeway to get things lined up. So if your countertop's say 48 by 25 and a half, then you want to have your laminate cut to at least 49 by 26 and a half, and that'll give you a little bit of play. Still make sure that you get your glue right out to the edges though. This is a contact adhesive, so once the two surfaces touch, they're stuck. So having that little bit of leeway of extra size on the laminate is a good thing. So if you get off a little bit, you hopefully everything's still going to work out. So I'm getting roughly about 70% or so coverage on the spray onto the surface. That's kind of what you're looking for. I'll just finish this up and then we'll do the wood again. Okay, so we've got that both surfaces done once. I'm going to go over this top another time. Cameraman was just mentioning that I hadn't talked about cutting the actual laminate, and we're going to actually cover that when I do the next little top. I'll cut a few strips and just show you how I cut that on the saw. Just trying to speed the video up a little bit by having some of this stuff pre-cut. Actually getting pretty good coverage out of this can here. So then if you find any spots that you figure don't have quite enough coverage, just go back and kind of hit those and be sure you got the coverage. I'm just going to have a look over here on this guy. Pretty good. Edges all look nice. So I just need a couple seconds for that to flash. I've got a couple spots here where the can dripped. So if you just go back and kind of pop those, they dry a little quicker. So just be sure if you're using a spray that it's made for plastic laminate. Follow their instructions. And there's lots of different brands out there. I've tried quite a few. This one here I just find works about the best. Okay, so this is getting pretty close. Now the next thing I want to do is I've got some sticks I'm going to lay across here to allow some separation so that when I flop that laminate on, it doesn't actually make contact right away. The sticks hold it up. I can get it positioned where I like it and then just start at one end by pulling sticks out and smoothing the laminate down. So my I'm just tacky. It just needs a couple more minutes. This one over here is probably good. Yeah. So your best when doing this, not to just walk away. You got to kind of keep an eye on it. You don't want the surface to completely dry right off, because then you may have to just spray it all again. So I've just had these sticks for years. I don't know, they're about 3/4 of an inch square or something. And I just spread them across this surface close enough so the laminate won't dip in between them and make contact. I've seen people use wax paper, that sort of thing. I've never been brave enough to try that because my feeling is, I mean, you have to cover the whole thing in wax paper, for one thing. And I don't know, I just find the sticks to work easier. If you're going to use sticks, so use something where, because they do slightly stick down a little bit, use something that little pieces aren't going to come off and be stuck in your glue when you're done. These are hardwood, so there's no slivers coming off. Don't use the particle board scraps or anything because you're going to get little pieces of wood in there for sure. And then you'll end up with a little bump underneath the laminate surface. Okay, so I think we're getting pretty close. A couple more minutes. So in a couple minutes I'll lay that piece on there and we'll give it a shot. Okay, so I'm going to bring the piece over. If you got a really awkward piece, you may need an extra set of hands to help you get it there without it snapping. So we're just going to lay it on top of our sticks. And now I can move it around a little bit to make sure that I'm overhanging everywhere that I need it to be overhanging, and it's not going to be short. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that there. I've got lots on the ends. This top was a little over 7 feet long, and the sheet was 8 feet, so I didn't bother cutting the strip of laminate right to length. But okay, so now what I'll do. It's probably easiest if I start at this end for the camera. I just lift this up a bit, and I'll take 2 or 3 of these out. And you don't want, make sure this didn't slide on you when you did that. Now I just want to ease it down into the glue. And just kind of start at one edge where it contacts and work your way to all the edges. And that'll kind of push any air out that you have under there so you don't trap any air. So then just keep working your way back the other way. I'm pulling some sticks out. Just applying a bit of pressure to it to make those glue surfaces contact each other. Until you get to the end. Okay. So we've got some applied pressure with our hands, obviously. Just kind of going around all the edges, making sure we got it down. Then I want to use a, where did I put it? Over here. A laminate roller. So I can actually roll the whole surface out and get some real good pressure on it. Be careful when you get to your sides where the laminate's overhanging, because if you get off the edge you can crack the laminate, especially where I've got it real long here. So usually the first thing I do when I've got a real long overhang is I figure out where my edge is, and I'll do that edge so I don't forget about it. Give it a couple roller widths along there. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, you want to be careful you don't push down and roll over that edge, because that'll just break this little corner right off too. So I'll go along this front edge, making sure I stop in time for there. I'm putting some pretty good weight down. There's bigger rollers than this one too, but this works just fine. Okay. Just do the whole surface at least once. Kind of overlapping your passes. If you had a sink cut out or something in here, like if you had it cut out for some reason for the sink ahead of time, just be careful working around that as well so you don't break an edge, crack an edge. Okay, so we've got that all rolled out with the J-roller. Get rid of these sticks. And the next thing we're going to need is a laminate router, so a trimming router. And before I plug it in, I'll just show you. I'm using a flush cut bit with a ball bearing. I actually use other bits as well. They're a flush cut bit, but they don't have a ball bearing at all. So in some instances, I'll use that one. So this guide down here at the bottom, this shaft, just runs across or along the edge of whatever you're trimming to, and this is the actual cutting blade up here. And on this case, the bearing runs along whatever surface you're trying to follow. The bearing here runs along that surface, and then there's a carbide, actually on this one, 2 carbide blades in that red area. So we're using laminate bevel edge on the edges of this, so we can trim this whole top off right flush. So I'm just going to plug that in, and sorry, but I need my hearing protection. Because these little routers are fairly noisy. So I've set my depth already. Actually, I could probably get it a little closer than that. Right about there. And I'm just going to go around the whole top and trim that off. I should mention we're trimming the outside, so I want to go counterclockwise around this top to make the router run smoothly. Okay, so we've gone around and trimmed that all off. Now I'm going to get rid of this cardboard from underneath so I can get back to my tabletop. And I'm going to run the belt sander around as well. The reason being is usually you get a little bit of chattering, you know, the ball bearings following that wood, so if there's any little voids or anything, it does a little bit of a chatter along there. If there's any big voids, you should pre-fill them ahead of time. But you always seem to get a little bit of something that, you know, the bearing rolls over even some of these filings as they shoot off. So I just touch it up once with the belt sander all the way around, and then we're ready to start putting on the bevel edge. Okay, so I've gone around that with the belt sander, just gave it a quick touch up, smooth out those edges. I had it clamped down to the bench here so it wouldn't slide around on me. So I can get rid of these clamps. So now we're ready to start the bevel edge. Okay, so we started to put the bevel edge, laminate bevel edge on the main part of the top here. So basically all it is cut to fit, put some wood glue on the back, press it into place, and then I use some painter's tape to hold it in place until that glue dries up. Depending on the glue you're using, that usually doesn't take a whole lot of time. So we've got these last couple pieces here at the end that I want to complete. So we're going to cut them. This bevel edge comes in 12-foot lengths, at least it does here. So I had a 12-foot length, and I've just been cutting it up as I go along. I've got this little guy already cut to go on the end here. This cut here is 45 degrees, so the cuts on the end of the bevel are 22.5, just so you don't make a mistake with that. So what I'm going to do is just square up the one end. I'm using just a 12-inch miter box here, basically, sliding compound miter saw. I've got an 80-tooth blade in there, carbide tip. You could get away with a 50 or 60, generally speaking, to do what you got to do. I'm just going to square this end off. Okay, now this edge of the countertop in my case is going to be against a wall. So I'm going to leave that far end and this end piece sticking out just about 1/8 of an inch. And that just gives me a little bit of countertop I can trim there when I'm installing it, in case the wall's got a bit of a wave in it or I need a little bit of extra width there. So I'm going to measure what this is right to the corner. It's 24 3/16, and I'm going to add 1/8, so 24 5/16. I'll just mark that onto my piece and cut it. And remember, this is, in my case, a 22.5 degree angle that I'm cutting. So hold it tight to the fence. Get your blade lined up where you want it. I just about cut the wrong end. Good thing I didn't do that. So 24 5/16. So let's mark it on the proper end this time. I am doing too much talking and not enough thinking. Something just didn't feel right as I was lining that up. And that's why. Okay, so again, I'm just going to line that up with my blade. Obviously keeping my fingers out of the way and make the cut. And I'll just give this a try here, but should be all right with what I needed. Should be a hair longer. Yeah, I am. So I should be good here. So I'm just going to add some wood glue and tape these into position. I'm just going to have a couple pieces of tape here ready to go. So I don't know, I'm putting my tape about every, 8 inches or something like that. Whatever it takes to hold it tight to the countertop. Okay, so I just want to line the top up where it's flush. Get my corners sitting pretty good. Just got to get a little bit more glue behind there. And you'll do a little bit of filing or fine sanding when this is all dry, and you can take the tape off just to fine tune all your little joints and edges. Okay, so that one's on there. I'll get this one on. So you should be able to order this material. I've never seen it in any stores. You usually have to go to a countertop manufacturer, and they'll either have it or be able to make it up for you usually. Now I'm going to be kind of in your way here. I'm going to start up against, I always start against the piece I just installed, and I'm just working my way around the counter. Okay, so just get that squeezed in there where I want it. Pull it tight with the tape. And just keep working my way along. Just trying to think if there's anything else I need to cover. I don't think so. And like I said, we're gonna, right here at the end, we're going to just do a small little counter up that has just the square laminate edge, just to show you kind of the difference. Okay, and then I usually just give a little extra one around the corner here. So once that dries and everything sets up, I can pull all those tapes off and just go around and do a slight file or a really fine sand right on that edge, these edges down here. And I usually go along this bottom corner too. This tends to be quite sharp, so it's nice just to take off that sharpness. So we're going to let that dry and set it out of the way, and I'm going to pull that little one out that we're going to do the other square edge on. Okay, so here's our little top. It's a different job or whatever, but different situation. We're going to do the laminate edge here and here, and then the top go on. So I'm going to show you how to cut the laminate on the saw, and then we're going to speed up the process of me actually building this top as far as putting the laminate on. We've already built the top. One thing to mention, if you're going to be gluing laminate with the spray adhesive like I am on the edges with this type of product, because it's so porous, I just filled it first with some filler compound, like wall patching compound, and then I'll sand it flat before, once it's dried, I'll sand it flat before I spray the glue on. Okay, so just going to set that to the side. So what I've got here on the saw is I've got a 60-tooth carbide blade. I've got a sacrificial panel hooked on the top of the table saw surface. And basically this thing does two jobs. It brings the surface of the table up so I don't have this gap under the fence where the laminate will tend to want to slide under. So this, because of its thickness, brings it up where I've got solid fence there to deal with. And it also just has a tight fit here where the blade's going through, so it does a little nicer job on the back side. You don't get as much splitting. So safety glasses, obviously. Start the saw up and just feed the laminate in nice and slow. Okay, I'm only going to cut one strip because that's all we need for that top. Now, if you didn't have a table saw, you could do your rough cutting with a straight edge and a router. It's going to be a lot more work, but if you can just borrow somebody's table saw and do the cutting on there, that's really the easiest way to do it. The other thing I guess you could do is you could use one of these laminate knives. So it's kind of got a spike-shaped carbide tip on the end that comes to a point, and you just run it along here's a piece of scrap, I'll just show you. You can put a piece of straight edge or whatever you want, and you just make a couple passes like this, and it'll break. Okay, now that won't give you a finished cut, but it'll get you your rough cuts for your pieces, and then trim them off with the router once they're glued on here. So, okay, so like I said, we're probably going to speed this process up a little bit. Really the only difference from what you seen me do just a few minutes ago is that we're going to add the edges on before we do the top, and we're going to be using spray adhesive. Once I get this one done, we're just going to speed through this. Once I get this done, I'm going to go back to that other top, just show you quickly how to file the edges, and then we're going to do the wrap up. Okay, so I won't bother showing putting the top on. So you can see there, basically I spray glued that, put it on. Now I would just mask off this area to protect it from glue. Spray this and the top piece, put them on just as you see me do the other ones. Run the router around, and then take a file and file that joint, just like I did on this corner. So you're just kind of holding the file, I'll just hold it up like this. So you're holding the file on about an angle like that, so that you can get that nice and flush back there without scratching this surface. So you don't want to hold it too flat, you want to have a little bit of angle like that. So you do that around these two edges where this finished piece is, and then it'd be ready to install. So now we'll just flip back over to our other one. In fact, I'll just roll it over here so I can take my tape off. To be real honest, I don't even know honestly what this file is. It is made for laminate, but you could probably just about use any file that's really fine. So what I want to do is where the joint is up here, where this piece comes in contact there, you usually get a little bit of a lip there. And I'm not really putting any pressure, I'm just going across there just to kind of round that off a little bit, so I get rid of that sharp edge that's there. Just like that. Make sure there's not one on that factory spot. And then, like I said, I like to do this bottom as well, because it usually is pretty sharp. Okay, so then you just continue around doing every joint there just to make sure that they aren't going to be sharp to the fingers. This stuff will give you a paper cut. So that's the basics to it. You know, depending on what style you're going to do. So hopefully this was helpful to you. And if you have any questions about it, you can come to the forum at house-improvements.com and find the appropriate topic for whatever you want to ask me. It doesn't have to be about this countertop. And I will be sure to get back to you with an answer. And some of our other regulars are kind of chiming in now and again too with their information, so that helps as well. So thanks for watching. If you like this, click the little thumbs up button. That'd be great. Thanks a lot.